got Dungeons and Dragons, 10 adventures, each readable in under an hour and playable in 1 to 2 sessions, and different styles of adventures for different age groups of play or different styles of players. It's got a new improved front page layout where it shows you in one paragraph what the adventure is about, what monsters you're going to need, particular callouts to things that you might want to have prepared for the adventure, rules that you might want to be familiar with, or particularly challenging rooms, and where the NPCs are located. It's fantastic, except it's a little undercooked. Most of the adventures in this book suffer from the same problems. Blunt force exposition, few meaningful choices, pointless NPCs, and encounters that are all flavor and no substance. Hi, I'm James. I've been a Dungeon Master for over 25 years, and on this channel I talk about the things that I think about, plan, and plot for my tabletop role-playing games. And today, that's this book, Dragon Delves. If you like dragons and books and pretty art about dragons, then this is a fantastic book. Lots of historical art that WotC has from dragons in there. But I am also a Dungeon Master, and I'm going to use this book and things like it to run adventures for my friends. So let's talk about using this book to run adventures for our friends. And let's start with the first adventure because it has all the crimes. Death at Sunset has all the beats to make it a classic D&D adventure. Echoes of an ancient evil returning, a corrupted druid grove, vanishing villagers, an optional side quest for more loot. So where does it go wrong? The adventure kind of goes out of its way to not start in a tavern. As it's written, you meet the NPCs right off the bat, and they kind of figuratively yell at the players. Adventure, that way, go there, now. After you're done talking with those NPCs, one of the NPCs that you were just talking to drops another load of box text on you that says, hey, you know that adventure location I told you that you should go to? Here's this other hook that you should go to that adventure location for, so why are you still standing here talking to me? Don't get me wrong, for a one-shot, it is a good idea to cut some of the fluff because we have a limited amount of time. We're not here to meander on the streets of Waterdeep, talking to every NPC shopkeeper to decide what item we want to buy. And we're not in Phandalin trying to pick up which quests we want to go on to do Dragon of Ice Spire Peak. We're here to run this adventure, the one you signed up for, the one the Dungeon Master prepped. That's kind of part of the deal when you're signing up for a one-shot. Except in this adventure, there's a bunch of NPCs in a tavern that the adventure doesn't prompt them to go into and even say that they're there. And those NPCs have a bunch of other quest hooks that would have led them to the quest. Adventure, that way, now. Oh, you want to faff about in a tavern? Okay, cool. I mean, it's right over there. Also, there's a merchant that way if you want to go talk to them. Personally, I would just bite the bullet and start in a tavern. Or maybe outside the tavern. The sun has set by the time you make your way into town and a fog has rolled in. All the lights are out in the houses, but you hear noises ahead. Horses are panicking and someone is screaming, calling for help. As you turn the corner, you see a peddler desperately trying to regain control of his horses while zombies close in. 40 feet past the peddler and the zombies, light pours out from a stable, and an elven man calls out from the stable door, "Leave the horses and run!" Once the players defeat the zombies, Fergus beckons them into his Applebee's franchise, along with the peddler's Sunny Light purse. Fergus is eager to ask for help, but he's going to argue with some of the other villagers. Low in Oakbridge, the village of Wainwright gets rumors 2 and 6. Mark me, this is the work of Death at Sunset. That old dragon was too evil to die in peace, and she's cursed these lands. Once she's consumed all our souls, she'll rise again in an abomination of bones and evil. Abigail Willowcrown has rumors 3 and 5. No dragon did this but the Lord of the Wood. We've angered him, and now he's turned the very trees against us. Be careful if you walk beneath the shadow of their bough, for none that venture in that forest have returned since. Rumors 1 and 4 go to Fergus. I'll bet this is 'cause of them blokes that came asking after Ethrin's sword. They probably disturbed them that died fighting Death at Sunset. I'd keep Gwenhamar and Selnar in the tavern, but they're off by themselves, having some discussion about what to do. If the players do some sort of an insight check or diplomacy or something to try to gather more information about what's going on, I would absolutely point them out as people that look like they might be more in charge than just the everyday villagers. And the villagers might point them out. But I want the players to discover them and go talk to them, not just be, hey, look, adventure, that way, you should go there. When the players get to the adventure location, Redwood Grove, it is a ring of redwood trees surrounding a central mound, and the dragon's lair is off to the east from when the players presumably enter this area. But as it's presented in the book, there is no overarching description of this whole location. There's no sense of geography. There's no choice, because the players are not provided with information about each one of these trees to decide which location they're going to go to first. Why would I go to R1 instead of R2 or R3 or R4 or any of the trees? The adventure seems to assume that you're just going to go tree by tree by tree. Okay, you go to R1. It has a tree with this. What are you going to do about that? Then you go to this other tree and it has Y. What are you going to do about that? And then you go to the third tree and it has on and on until you've made your way through all of the trees. But that's easily fixable with the description. 40 feet from the grove, the tree line breaks, giving you a first clear view of 6 titanic redwood trees that circle a flower-covered mound. All the trees are sickly, but the 4 furthest trees are too far away to make out any substantial details. The one just to the north is bleeding copious amounts of greenish-yellow sap, while the one to the east has a camp made out in its shadow. 3 sentences, and we've got 4 choices. You could try to sneak through to get to the mound. You could circle around and try to get information on some of the other locations. You could check out the tree to the north with the bleeding sap. You could check out the tree to the east with the camp at its base. Now let's talk about the first NPC you meet and the guardian to the proper dungeon, Armin. Something about Armin as he's written the book just doesn't add up for me. He's either a coward or maybe he's an idiot. I don't get what's going on here. I understand that he's supposed to be scarred from being tortured by the green dragon wormling, but we also know, because of the story that's written in the book, that he, along with the other council members, were among those that faced an ancient green dragon before. How he survived that as a level 2 scout, I have no idea, but I've got enough to pick apart here, so we're just going to leave that one alone. Armin could easily go get Gwenhamara and Selenar and go take out the green dragon wormling, so for verisimilitude, I need to fix him because I like those games where things make sense. So option number 1, Armin is just a hunter. He's still a scout, but he never faced the ancient green dragon. He wouldn't know green dragon wormling from a salamander. So that's why he's so easily taken by the danger of this wormling. That would make sense to me. Option 2, Armin is already dead, and his body is being guarded by his loyal dog, Fletcher. If Fletcher is upset by the players trying to loot Armin or something, then it will bark and let everybody inside know that there are intruders coming. It's not the intention, though. Fletcher's just trying to guard its master's body. If the players manage to calm Fletcher and treat Armin's body with respect, then Fletcher might adopt the players. Everybody loves a new dog. Everybody wants a pet. Would you face an ancient green dragon for me? Does that look like the face that will face an ancient green dragon for me? No. Option number 3, Armin is charmed. Change out Marlis's suggestion for charmed person. Normally that would last 1 hour, but we've got all these weird poison mushrooms and weird saps from trees that are all corrupted. So Marlissa has used that to make a special potion, a poison. And if you are under the effect of that poison, you are more susceptible to charms and mental manipulations, and allows charms to last for 24 hours. If you've got an evil player character, they may want that item. Okay, that's fine. You can find a sample of it in Marlissa's room, and if you get it and you succeed at an alchemy check with alchemy tools DC 20, you can figure out how to make your own copy of it, but it needs specific items that only grow in the presence of a green dragon. And once you kill the green dragon wormling, all those items are going to become inert and now useless. You've got a limited window in which to make certain amounts of potions. There seems to be a little bit of a misprint in the book. If you read the descriptions for L5 and L7 and look at the map, they don't match up. You've got to swap those two around, otherwise it's not going to make sense. Most of the encounters in the dungeon are fine, but the box text that they provide for each location does not call out what would be obvious to a character in them. What's in the next room? If you were standing at L1, you would be able to see the dragon skeleton and the cloud of smoke down there in L6. So say so. Sure, an experienced dungeon master knows to do that kind of thing or have the players make a perception check. Maybe. I think it would be really obvious, but you do you. This dungeon ends up really being effectively a 5-room dungeon. There's room R4 outside with the guardian Armin, a social encounter that might end up being a combat encounter, and then L1 with more guards, a combat encounter that might end up being a social encounter. L2 and L3 are really the same room, just slightly differently numbered, that you'd have the same encounter at the same time. So I'd call that one room. And that really is a social encounter that almost certainly will be a combat encounter. Then L6, which is the boss monologuing, followed by the combat encounter of the boss. Then getting to L7, remember the rooms are switched, L5, L7. Finally, the treasure. Except there's 2 other rooms in here that have encounters that are really kind of afterthoughts. Imagine you're a group of players that kill the evil dragon cultists and then kill the dragon master, and then you get the loot and you see that there's this little alcove in the corner and you go over there to explore it just to see if there's anything else there, and you die to centipedes. It's improbable, perhaps, and possible, certainly, but it is definitely anticlimactic. But I don't necessarily object to these encounters. I think we just need to move things around, zhuzh the adventure so that they make more thematic sense, and ideally they provide some choices in how to negotiate your way through the dragon lair. So we're gonna have to rearrange the map, and unfortunately we're gonna have to lose the pretty map, except not really, because I made you a replacement one on Incarnate. It's down there in the doobly-doo. They don't sponsor the video or anything. None of this is like a review copy or anything. I went out and bought it, so I use it myself. You're free to use them if you like. We're gonna move L2 into the path between L1 and L6 to connect those 2 locations. And then we're going to remove L4 to connect L1 to L5 and then eventually to L7 so that we give the players choices. After they discover the guards and defeat them, they could go and try to figure out where the guards were sleeping and what's there. As the adventure is written, one of the guards says that he has a vial of acid in his bedroll. That's an interesting place to keep that, but okay. I'd change that potion of acid to a potion of healing to make it more appealing for the players to go in. It makes more sense to keep that in your bedroll than acid. But once the players are in there, I'd have whoever has the highest passive perception, or an elf if there's one in the party, detect something off about the west wall. If they go inspect it, the blights attack. They were there guarding the guards for Maralissa. Had they thought that the guards were plotting against Maralissa or the dragon, they would have killed the elves in their sleep. But once they're gone, there's now a new secret passage open between where the guards were bedding down and the treasure. You just got to squeak through this difficult terrain hallway that's going to be hard for the players to get through, and they're going to have disadvantage while they do so. And then the centipedes are all going to attack while they're squeaking through this hallway. Once they burst through the room, they're in the dragon's hoard. They can just grab it and go. Who wants to fight a dragon? We could die doing that. We've got the treasure. Let's get out of here. Maybe they're those kind of adventurers. Or they could fight the dragon from behind. The dragon doesn't see them coming. Maybe they never fight Maralissa. They just go back the way they came. What if they went the other way? They fight the guards and they see that giant dragon skeleton down there in the cloud of poisonous gas. Or they see Maralissa's chamber and they want to go find out who lives there. Did they remember to check for traps? Because if they didn't, one of them's falling into that snake pit. Probably a dexterity save. Let them have that save. There's no way that Maralissa doesn't hear them stumbling out there, and she's going to come out and find out what's going on and join the fight. Maybe she yells, "Stop!" to all the snakes, and they stop attacking, and she wants to know what these people are doing here. Because apparently she's not very bright and hasn't figured out what a group of armed adventurers are possibly doing in a dragon cave, but maybe your players like talking to villains, so, let them. Once Maralissa takes 33 points of damage, she's going to flee the fight if she can. She's going to go join her master, Sunset is Nigh, in room L6. Now we have a much more dynamic and dangerous boss encounter. Just by cutting a gap in a wall and moving around some of the encounters that were already there, we have a much more dynamic dungeon with some choices for the players. It didn't take that long to look at the encounters and see that there was a very railroady linear adventure. It's not substantially more ink. It's the same encounters in a different order. It's not harder to run, and it's going to be much more fun for your players. The whole book is like this, a bunch of good ideas for adventure that really just needed another revision. They're all half-baked. The second adventure, Baker's Don't, has a solid plot hook. It's fun. It's something that I would run with a bunch of kids if I had kids that were playing Dungeons & Dragons. But once you get to the adventure location, there's a compulsion effect that the players just get to choose whether they acknowledge it or not. And I asked my players, and they literally told me, no, this is stupid. There should be some sort of a save. That's part of the fun of playing Dungeons & Dragons, that I roll the dice and it's left up to luck on whether or not I'm going to go in the room, or I get to stand outside and go, this seems like a bad idea to go into a witch's hut. And there's a bunch of candy defects in there where characters get turned into candy, but they don't do anything. They're just flavor, no substance. If you're turned into a taffy character, then you should get to do something with that. Because you are sticky taffy, you stick to the ground, and all terrain is difficult terrain. But you should be able to stretch out your arms like Elastigirl. You have 15-foot reach on all melee attacks now. If you are turned into a gingerbread man because you are a 2D figure now, you get advantage on all stealth checks. But you have to make a dexterity save every time you move before falling prone because you are a floppy piece of paper. Chapters 3 and 4 are decent dungeons, but they suffer from many of the same problems. Blunt force exposition and some very odd antagonists. The cult leader in The Will of Orcus, Chapter 3, is an idiot. And the zombies painting the wall, I don't know, zombies painting a wall, I could see them maybe using rollers to paint it all white, but, you know, trying to paint detailed silver dragons, I think zombies would be like a 2-year-old just going, nah, all over the walls. And what's the point of Kara in For Whom the Void Calls? She just kind of shows up. Sure, if your players are a bunch of murder hobos and they're killing every Modron in the dungeon, then she makes at least one encounter actually worthwhile and something that players might actually have to put in some effort to rather than just murdering a bunch of Modrons. But if your players are not murder hobos, she just kind of shows up and says, hey, I'm here, and then watches them fiddle with a bunch of controls before she just leaves. And the conclusion of the adventure is very anticlimactic. It boils down to, whoa, gee, this was all a misunderstanding. I'm very sorry about all of this destruction that I caused. Can we just let bygones be bygones? I'm okay with them recruiting Kara. I'm okay with them turning the intended villain into a future ally and getting them to repent their ways. But if they're going to do that, you still need a climactic end to the adventure, not just it petering out. If that's the way you're going to go, and that's what happens, then have the MacGuffin of the adventure spawn forth a gray slot or something. You're supposed to customize adventures. I wouldn't tell anyone to run them exactly as they're written, then everybody is having the exact same experience over and over, and part of the fun in tabletop role-playing games is all our experiences are a little bit different. They fractal out into something that is different. I think this is a good book for experienced dungeon masters. They could definitely do something with this and try to make it their own thing and has some nice seeds to make some decent adventures with. But for a book that markets itself as easy prep, just grab and go, or for new dungeon masters, players that are trying their hands at being a dungeon master for the first time, I think it's undercooked. It doesn't have enough support for them to get them over the hump into a here's how you do things. It needed another round of whoever the original writers on each of these adventures was, trying to run it with some players and pointing out where there aren't enough hooks for differently motivated characters, where there aren't any choices or consequences for the player's actions, and where the adventures will just kind of stall. I want them to keep doing this, though. I love anthology adventures. I find them far more useful in more situations than just your big, giant books of campaigns. You should do those still. We can have both. Just, keep doing these. I love the variety of adventures that are in here. There's lots of proper dungeons for my style of play, and there's things for like I said, if I had kids, I would absolutely play Baker's Don't with them. I really like the new layout on the page 1, calling out specific things, monsters, that kind of thing. That was aces. Keep making that, keep iterating, and keep doing better. Just, finish cooking the chicken before you serve it to me. Until next time, Dungeon Masters, remember you're a player too. Try to have some fun. It was a downer episode. Feel mean to them, and I don't want to feel mean to them. So here's a puppy. Here's a puppy.